Galactic leaders stunned as humanity walks away from peace negotiations. The vast Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Thomas Rivera stood alone at the central podium. Thousands of alien representatives from across the known universe watched from tiered seating that spiraled upward for what seemed like miles. Crystalline structures hung from the domed ceiling, casting prismatic light across the assembly. This was humanity's first official appearance before the Council, and no one had expected what was about to happen. Thomas straightened his formal blue uniform, adorned only with Earth's simple emblem, a blue and green circle. He looked small compared to the massive chamber and the diverse alien forms surrounding him. Some delegates towered 15 feet tall with multiple limbs, while others were barely visible, floating as clouds of luminescent gas. Security drones hovered silently around the perimeter, their weapons systems tracking every movement. "The terms are unacceptable," Thomas said, his voice steady despite the gravity of his words. "Humanity rejects the proposed limitations on our technological development." A wave of murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Primarch of the Council, a luminescent being whose form shifted between gaseous and solid states, leaned forward on its elevated platform. Its voice, translated through the chamber's systems, resonated with artificial clarity. "Ambassador Rivera," the Primarch said, "perhaps you misunderstand. These are not proposals. They are requirements for Earth's continued safety. The Cadrax Armada waits at the edge of your solar system. The Medullan Confederation has already voted to quarantine your planet. The thrice-evolved directive considers your species a Category 5 evolutionary anomaly." Behind Thomas, a holographic projection of Earth rotated slowly, a small blue marble that had, in mere decades, become the most controversial planet in the known universe. Thomas smiled thinly. "We understand perfectly, Primarch. That's why I'm authorized to inform this council that as of this moment, Earth is activating the Prometheus Protocol." The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates stood, shouted, and some even left their stations in panic. The Cadrax representative, a carapaced being with multiple appendages, slammed one limb against its control panel. "Impossible," the Cadrax representative shouted. "Our intelligence indicated the Prometheus technology was theoretical." Thomas tapped his wrist device, and suddenly, the holographic Earth behind him began to pulse with energy. Across the chamber, data screens flickered with incoming reports from across the galaxy. "What have you done?" the Primarch demanded, its form fluctuating rapidly between states. "Earth isn't alone anymore," Thomas replied calmly. "While you've been debating our fate, we've been preparing. The Prometheus Protocol isn't a weapon, it's a network. And as of now, 17 previously unknown sentient species have joined our alliance. Species your council deemed too primitive to contact." The Medullan representative stood abruptly. Its four eyes blinked in rapid sequence, a sign of extreme agitation among its kind. "This violates 600 years of cosmic law. You cannot simply—" "We just did," Thomas interrupted. "Humanity didn't come here to beg for peace. We came to offer you a choice. Recognize our sovereignty and that of our allies, or watch as the galaxy's balance of power shifts entirely." With a deliberate gesture, Thomas disconnected his diplomatic credentials from the Council's network. The symbolic act of effectively walking away from negotiations was unprecedented in the Council's 4,000-year history. "Ambassador Rivera," the Primarch called, its voice now tinged with something new, fear. "If you leave this chamber, there is no coming back." Thomas paused at the threshold of the grand doorway. "That's where you're wrong, Primarch. We'll be back all, but next time we'll be setting the terms." As Thomas exited, the emergency klaxons began to sound throughout the Council station. On every data screen across the chamber, the same message flashed repeatedly. "Proximity. Alert, unknown vessels detected in Council space." The Primarch's form solidified completely, a rare occurrence that signaled extreme stress. "Explain," it demanded of its security chief. The security chief, a being composed of interlocking metal plates housing a biological core, tapped rapidly on its console. 17 vessels of unknown design have appeared at strategic points throughout Council space. They've bypassed all early warning systems. "Weapons?" the Primarch asked. "Unknown," the security chief replied. "But they're not charging any recognizable weapon systems. They appear to be waiting." In a secure hangar bay, Thomas entered the Earth diplomatic shuttle where his team waited. Captain James Wilson, head of security, stood as Thomas entered. "How did they take it?" James asked. Exactly as predicted, Thomas replied, loosening his formal collar. Complete shock, followed by threats, then panic when they realized we weren't bluffing. Communications Officer Lena Rodriguez looked up from her station. Sir, we're receiving a priority message from Admiral Walsh. The first phase is complete. All Allied ships are in position. And the Council's response? Thomas asked. They've mobilized their defense fleet, Lena said. But they're confused. Our ships aren't taking hostile action, and they can't get clear scans of our technology. Thomas nodded. That was the plan. Keep them guessing. The longer they remain uncertain, the stronger our position grows. As the shuttle detached from the Council station, Thomas watched through the viewport as the massive structure receded. It had stood for 4 millennia as the center of galactic government. A government that had decided, without Earth's knowledge or consent, that humanity would be contained, limited, and eventually directed along a path of the Council's choosing. What do you think they'll do next? James asked. They'll try to divide us, Thomas said. They'll approach each of our allies separately, offer them special status, try to break apart our coalition before it fully forms. It's what they've always done. And our allies? Lena asked. They know the Council's tactics better than we do, Thomas replied. Some of them have been watching from the shadows for centuries, waiting for a chance to break the Council's dominance. We just gave them that chance. The shuttle accelerated away from the station, heading toward the Earth vessel Audacity that waited at a safe distance. On the main console, reports continued to come in as the news spread throughout Council space. Humanity had not only rejected the Council's authority, but had somehow formed alliances with species the Council didn't even know existed. Admiral Walsh is hailing us, Lena announced. The view screen activated, showing the stern face of Admiral Eleanor Walsh on the bridge of the Audacity. Well done, Ambassador, Eleanor said. Phase 1 complete. The Council is exactly where we want them, or off balance and afraid. What about Dr. Reeves? Thomas asked. Is she ready for Phase 2? Eleanor nodded. Lydia's team is in position. The quantum communication network is fully operational. Every allied world is standing by. When you arrive, we begin the broadcast. Thomas looked back one more time at the Council station, now a distant point of light. For centuries, the Council had manipulated developing worlds, steering them toward paths that would never threaten the established order. They had expected humans to either submit to their guidance or rebel in predictable, easily crushed ways. Instead, humanity had found a third option, one the Council had never anticipated. In just 3 years since discovering the truth about galactic politics, Earth had quietly reached out to other species ignored or suppressed by the Council, building a shadow network of allies united by a common cause, freedom from the Council's manipulation. Set course for the rendezvous point, Thomas instructed. It's time to show the galaxy what their leaders have been hiding. The shuttle's engines flared as it accelerated to join the Audacity. Behind them, the Council station's lights flickered as its systems struggled to process the flood of unexpected data now streaming through its networks. The carefully maintained balance of power that had defined galactic politics for thousands of years had just been shattered, and humanity had done it without firing a single shot. Galactic leaders stunned as humanity walks away from peace. Negotiations. Admiral Eleanor Walsh stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Audacity, watching as the diplomatic shuttle carrying Ambassador Rivera docked in the main hangar. Through the IEIR massive view screen, she could see the stunned faces of the Galactic Council security forces as they tracked the movements of not just the Audacity, but the 12 other ships that had suddenly appeared in Council space. Ships of designs, never before catalogued in the Council's extensive archives. The bridge hummed with quiet tension as officers monitored incoming data. The Audacity was humanity's first true deep space vessel, built in secret, using technology reverse-engineered from a crashed scout ship 10 years earlier. To the Council, it should have been impossible for humans to create such a ship so quickly. That was exactly the point. How did they take it? Eleanor asked as Thomas stepped onto the bridge, still wearing his formal diplomatic uniform. Exactly as predicted, Thomas replied, loosening his formal collar. Complete shock followed by threats, then panic when they realized we weren't bluffing. Eleanor nodded to her communications officer, who activated a secure channel. The view screen filled with faces, our human and decidedly non-human, all commanders of the newly revealed Alliance fleet. The first phase is complete, Eleanor announced. The Council knows we've been in contact with the Viridian Systems, the Nyx Collective, and the others they've deliberately kept isolated. Now we move to Phase 2. Captain Jiro Tanaka, her second-in-command, pulled up a galactic map showing dozens of blinking lights across previously empty sectors of space. The quantum communication relays are all active. Every ally is ready to move simultaneously. What about Dr. Reeves? Thomas asked. Is she prepared for the public revelation? Eleanor's expression grew serious. Lydia is ready, but she's concerned about potential backlash once the Council realizes what humanity has actually discovered. The view screen shifted to show Dr. Lydia Reeves, a quantum physicist whose discovery 2 years prior had changed everything. She stood in a laboratory surrounded by equipment that hummed with a strange, almost musical energy. The Council has been lying for millennia, Lydia explained, gesturing to the pulsing light contained within a transparent chamber. What they call hyperspace is actually a conscious dimension. The beings there, the ones they've dismissed as dimensional anomalies, are sentient. The Council has been exploiting them for faster-than-light travel without consent. And now they're our most powerful allies, Eleanor added. Thomas looked around at the diverse faces on the screen, our leaders, from species the Council had deemed too primitive to join galactic society, all united by humanity's discovery and outreach. Begin the broadcast, Eleanor commanded. Let's show the galaxy what their leaders have been hiding. Across thousands of worlds, communication systems were suddenly hijacked. Council propaganda channels went dark, replaced by a simple message. The truth will be revealed in 1 hour. The Galactic Council does not speak for all. Witness what they have been hidden from you. In the Council chamber, panic turned to terror as reports flooded in from every sector of governed space. How? The Primarch demanded of its security chief. How could humans have this kind of reach? The security chief, a being of pure energy contained within an exoskeleton, responded with growing dread. They didn't develop weapons, Primarch. They developed relationships. And somehow they've gained access to the ancestral archives of the secrets we've kept for 20,000 years. On the bridge of the Audacity, Eleanor watched as the countdown to their revelation ticked away. Beside her, Thomas seemed lost in thought. Having second thoughts? She asked. Thomas shook his head. No, but I am thinking about how we got here. 3 years ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Then that scout ship crashed in the Arizona desert and everything changed. The Council thought they were being clever, Eleanor said. Send a small ship to evaluate our threat level, determine how to best control our development. Instead, we captured it, learned from it, and discovered the truth about the galaxy. Thomas finished. Their arrogance became their weakness. The countdown reached 0. On the main view screen, Dr. Reeves' face appeared, broadcasting to every world in Council space. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, my name is Dr. Lydia Reeves of Earth. What I'm about to tell you has been hidden from most of you for thousands of years. As Lydia explained the truth about hyperspace beings and the Council's exploitation of them, Eleanor received an urgent message from their intelligence division. The Council has deployed its fleet, she informed Thomas. 26 capital ships heading toward Earth. Thomas nodded, unsurprised. They're following the standard protocol for handling dangerous species. Show of force, intimidation, then demands for surrender. Little do they know, Eleanor said with a grim smile, that their ships won't get far. On the view screen, Lydia's broadcast continued, now showing historical records extracted from the ancestral archives that are evidence of the Council's systematic suppression of technological development across dozens of worlds, the creation of artificial cultural barriers between species, and the deliberate misdirection of scientific research away from the true nature of hyperspace. They're trying to cut off the broadcast, Captain Tanaka reported, attempting to override our signal. Let them try, Eleanor said confidently. The quantum network doesn't use their communication protocols. They can't stop what they don't understand. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected a massive energy surge from the Council fleet. All 26 vessels had activated their hyperspace drives simultaneously, attempting to jump to Earth's solar system. But instead of disappearing into hyperspace, the ships hung motionless, surrounded by a strange purple glow. "It's happening," Thomas said quietly. Throughout Council space, on thousands of ships and stations, the distinctive hum of hyperspace engines suddenly changed pitch. The blue light they normally emitted shifted to a deep, vibrant purple. In the Council chamber, the Primarch watched in horror as reports flooded in of ships losing control of their FTL systems. But rather than crashing or exploding, they were being guided, gently, purposefully, to safe locations. "What have the humans done?" the Primarch whispered. Its aide, trembling, pointed to the main view screen where a message was appearing. "Across every communication channel in Council space, we are free. And we remember who imprisoned us." The hyperspace beings had awakened. Back on the Audacity, Eleanor received confirmation that the hyperspace entities had successfully neutralized the Council fleet, not by destroying it, but by simply removing its ability to threaten. "All ships report hyperspace transitions complete," Captain Tanaka announced. "The Council fleet has been relocated to the outer rim of the Vega sector. Their weapon systems are offline, but life support remains functioning." "No casualties?" Thomas asked. "None," Eleanor confirmed. "That was the agreement with the hyperspace entities. No loss of life." Thomas nodded, satisfied. Humanity didn't come this far to become what we're fighting against. The Council ruled through fear and force. We won't make the same mistake. The view screen showed images from across Council space as the revelation continued to spread. On some worlds, there were celebrations in the streets as species long suppressed realized they were finally free of Council control. On others, particularly those who had benefited most from the old system, there was confusion and fear. "Phase 2 complete," Eleanor declared. "Now we move to Phase 3. "The new alliance," Thomas said. Eleanor nodded. "Representatives from every liberated world are converging on the neutral space station at Proxima Centauri. The first true galactic forum where all species have an equal voice." Dr. Reeves joined them on the bridge, her broadcast complete. "The hyperspace entities want to send a representative as well. They've never had a physical form before, but they're willing to create an avatar to communicate with us directly." "A historic moment," Thomas said. "The beginning of a new era." Eleanor looked at the galactic map where the power structure visible just hours ago had been completely rewritten. The old Council territories were now isolated, cut off from hyperspace travel, while the newly liberated worlds formed a web of alliances spanning the galaxy. "The Council will retaliate," Captain Tanaka warned. "They still have conventional weapons, armies, resources." "Let them try," Eleanor replied. "Without hyperspace travel, their empire will fragment within weeks. The central worlds can't control the outer systems without rapid transit and communication." Thomas turned to Lydia. "What about the other technologies the Council was suppressing? The ones mentioned in the archives?" "Clean energy production, advanced medicine, terraforming techniques," Lydia listed. "Technologies that would have made resource scarcity obsolete. The Council buried them because abundance would have undermined their control. We'll share them all," Eleanor decided, "with every world that joins the Alliance." A message came through from Earth OER, the first since the broadcast had begun. It was from the United Earth Government, the hastily formed body that had been created when the truth about the galactic community was revealed to humanity 3 years earlier. "They're relieved," Thomas reported after reading it, "and somewhat shocked that our crazy plan actually worked." Galactic leaders stunned as humanity walks away from peace negotiations, the Galactic Archives. A massive structure floating in space near the Council's central world Astao was supposed to be impenetrable. Its crystalline walls reflected the light of nearby stars, creating a rainbow effect that had inspired awe in visitors for thousands of years. Inside those walls lay the collective knowledge of over 20,000 years of galactic history, and the secrets the Council had hidden from most species. Marcus Reed, Earth's foremost data archaeologist, moved silently through the digital landscapes of the archives with his team. The physical security had been surprisingly easy to bypass. The Council had never expected anyone to attempt a direct infiltration of their most sacred repository. Their arrogance had been their weakness. They compartmentalized everything, Marcus explained to the team of human and alien hackers working alongside him. Holographic displays surrounded them, showing layer upon layer of encrypted data. Each species was only given access to carefully curated information. No one was ever supposed to see the full picture. Nari, a member of the Viridian species whose natural ability to perceive data patterns had been deemed too dangerous by the Council, moved her six-fingered hands through the holographic display. Her skin had a faint blue tint that seemed to glow in the dim light of the archive's central chamber. The deception goes back to the founding of the Council itself, Nari said, her voice filled with quiet anger. The original 13 species didn't form it to promote peace, They formed it to control resources and maintain power. The central chamber of the archives, deep within the Council's most secure facility, was now under the control of the Alliance. Outside battles raged as Council forces attempted to retake the facility, but they were held at bay by ships from a dozen previously unknown species. We have 94% of the historical data, Elohan, a crystalline being from the Nyx Collective, announced. His body refracted the light from the displays, sending tiny rainbows dancing across the walls, including proof that the Council has deliberately sabotaged the technological development of 67 species in the last millennium alone. Marcus nodded grimly. And Earth was next on their list. The facility shuddered as another assault hit the outer defenses. Through the transparent ceiling, they could see energy blasts impacting the shields protecting the archives. They're getting desperate, Nari observed. The Primarch must realize what we're about to release. Marcus activated his communication link to the Audacity. Admiral Walsh, we're almost finished here. Is the distribution network ready? Eleanor's voice came through clearly. All channels are prepared. Once you transmit, every inhabited world will receive the data simultaneously. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the security feeds, Marcus could see Council forces breaking through the outer perimeter, led by the feared Enforcer Corps, genetically engineered soldiers loyal only to the Council leadership. Their armor gleamed under the emergency lights and their weapons were raised. We need more time, Marcus urged his team. Keep working. I'll handle this. He turned to the small group of human special forces who had accompanied him. Lieutenant Alvarez, initiate Protocol Omega. Lieutenant Sofia Alvarez nodded grimly. She was a veteran of Earth's defense forces, and one of the first humans trained to fight in zero gravity. You have 15 minutes, Dr. Reed. Make them count. As Sophia led her team to confront the enforcers, Marcus returned to the core data systems. We're not just looking for historical records anymore, he told the remaining team. Find me the suppression protocols, the means by which they've kept the dimensional beings enslaved for FTL travel. Elohan's crystalline form pulsed with surprise. You're not planning to just expose the Council, you're planning to free the hyperspace entities? That was always the plan, Marcus confirmed. Humanity doesn't just want a seat at the table. We want to break the table and build a new one, together. As gunfire echoed from the corridors outside, Marcus found what he was looking for, and the quantum resonance codes that had imprisoned countless dimensional beings for millennia. With a few keystrokes, he initiated the liberation sequence. The chamber's lights flickered, then stabilized. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then a strange vibration began to build, passing through the floor, the walls, the air itself. It wasn't sound exactly, but something deeper, as if reality itself was humming. It's working, Nari whispered, her hand still moving through the data streams. The quantum locks are dissolving. On the security feeds, Marcus saw something unexpected. The Council enforcers, who had been advancing steadily toward their position, suddenly stopped. Their weapons lowered, and some even removed their helmets, looking around in confusion. What's happening? Marcus asked. Sophia's voice came through his communicator. The enforcers, they're standing down. They're saying they can hear singing? Marcus looked at Elohan. The hyperspace entities? The crystalline being's form pulsed with excitement. They're communicating directly with the enforcers. The Council uses quantum resonance implants to control their elite forces. The same technology they use to enslave the hyperspace beings. By freeing one, we've freed both. Throughout the galaxy, on thousands of ships and stations, The distinctive hum of hyperspace engines suddenly changed pitch. The light they emitted shifted from blue to a deep, vibrant purple. In the council chamber, the Primarch watched in horror as reports flooded in of ships losing control of their FTL systems. But rather than crashing or exploding, they were being guided gently, purposefully to safe locations. "What have the humans done?" the Primarch whispered. Its aide, trembling, pointed to the main view screen where a message was appearing across every communication channel in council space. "We are free, and we remember who imprisoned us." The hyperspace beings had awakened. Back in the archives, Marcus received confirmation from Admiral Walsh that the liberation had been successful across all of council space. The hyperspace entities had taken control of FTL systems, effectively neutralizing the council's military advantage, but had caused no casualties in the process. "The council fleet has been contained," Eleanor reported. "Their weapons are offline, but life support is functioning normally. The hyperspace entities are keeping their promise or no loss of life." "And the data transmission?" Marcus asked. "Complete," Eleanor confirmed. "Every world in council space has received the archive data. The truth is out, Marcus. There's no putting it back in the box." The team worked quickly to gather the remaining data, copying everything they could from the archive's central systems. As they prepared to leave, Nari paused by a sealed door they hadn't yet explored. "What's this?" she asked, her hands moving over the security lock. Marcus checked his map of the facility. "Unknown. It's not on any of the schematics we obtained." Elohan approached, his crystalline body shifting colors as he analyzed the door. "The lock is different from the others. Older technology, much older." With Nari's data perception abilities and Elohan's knowledge of ancient tech, they managed to bypass the security measures. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a small, dark chamber beyond. As they entered, lights activated automatically, illuminating what appeared to be some kind of stasis room. In the center, suspended in a field of energy, was a small object, a simple cube made of a material none of them recognized. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Elohan approached cautiously. "I believe this might be a data storage device from before the council era." Nari's expression was one of awe. "The first archive. I thought it was just a myth." "The what?" Marcus asked. "Before the council formed," Nari explained, "legend says there was another galactic civilization, more advanced, more peaceful. They disappeared mysteriously, leaving only fragments of their knowledge behind. The council was supposed to be preserving that knowledge, not hiding it." Marcus looked at the cube floating in its stasis field. "Can we access it?" Elohan shook his head. "Not here, not now. We would need specialized equipment and more time than we have." "Take it," Marcus decided. "Whatever it contains, it shouldn't be left in council hands." Carefully, they deactivated the stasis field and secured the cube in a portable containment unit. As they prepared to leave the archives, Marcus received a final update from Admiral Walsh. "Marcus, the council has called for an emergency session. They're asking for representatives from Earth and all allied species to attend. I think they want to negotiate." Marcus couldn't help but laugh. "Now they want to negotiate? After everything they've done? What should I tell them?" Eleanor asked. Marcus looked at his team of humans working alongside species the council had deemed unworthy of equal status, and at the cube they had rescued from its hidden chamber. "Tell them we'll meet. But this time, we'll be setting the terms." As they made their way back to their ship, Marcus saw that the fighting had stopped completely. Council forces and Alliance troops stood side by side, weapons lowered as the truth spread throughout the station. Millennia of lies were being undone in hours. The ship's captain greeted them as they boarded. "Dr. Reed, we're receiving transmissions from across council space. Dozens of worlds are declaring independence from council rule. Some of the council member species are even calling for the Primarch's resignation. Galactic leaders stunned as humanity walks away from peace." Negotiations Grand Arbiter Delvos of the Cadrax, once among the most feared voices in the council, now stood before a very different tribunal. The massive chamber, hastily assembled in neutral space, contained representatives from over 200 species, most of whom had never been permitted to speak in council affairs before. The walls were transparent, allowing a view of the stars and nearby ships of countless designs, a visual reminder of the diversity now gathered in one place. Delvos's carapace, usually polished to a high shine for council meetings, now appeared dull and brittle. His 4 primary limbs were held close to his body, a posture of defensiveness among his species. He looked small standing alone at the center of the chamber, surrounded by those his government had helped suppress for centuries. At the center was not the Primarch, but a coalition of leaders: Admiral Eleanor Walsh of Earth, Matriarch Zelna of the Viridians, Elder Elohan of the Nyx Collective, and most surprising of all, a luminous shifting form that represented the newly liberated hyperspace entities, who had chosen the name the Confluence. "The evidence has been presented," Eleanor stated, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. She stood straight in her formal uniform, the silver and blue of Earth's United Defense Forces. "For 10,000 years, the Council has manipulated, suppressed, and exploited countless species for the benefit of a select few. The question now is, what form will justice take?" Delvos, his carapace now dull with stress, raised his primary limbs in protest. "You cannot possibly understand the complexities of galactic governance. The strong must guide the development of the less advanced. It has always been this way." Dr. Lydia Reeves stepped forward, the quantum containment device at her side now empty, its former prisoner now among the Confluence representatives. Her usually calm demeanor was charged with barely controlled anger. "That argument might have held weight," Lydia replied, "if you had actually been guiding rather than suppressing. The archive data shows that your council deliberately sabotaged the development of 93 promising technologies that would have eliminated resource scarcity across the galaxy." The chamber erupted in angry shouts from dozens of species, each now aware of how their potential had been deliberately stunted. A representative from the Makari system, a species that communicated through color patterns on their skin, flashed bright red with rage. The Jotun delegates, massive beings who had been forced to limit their population due to alleged resource constraints, stomped their heavy limbs in unison, causing the floor to vibrate. Eleanor raised her hand for silence. The chamber gradually quieted, all eyes returning to her. Despite having no formal authority over this gathering, her natural leadership had made her the de facto voice of the proceedings. "We didn't come here for vengeance," Eleanor said, her voice calm but firm. "Humanity walked away from your negotiations because they were never negotiations at all. They were ultimatums. But we're not like you. We're offering a genuine choice." The view screen behind her illuminated with a galactic map showing 2 distinct regions. "The galaxy will be divided. The old council species may retain their territories and governance structure if they wish. The rest of us, our humans, and all others who choose to join, will form a new alliance based on mutual development and genuine cooperation." Delvos laughed bitterly. "And you expect us to simply accept this division? The council fleet still outnumbers yours." The representative of the Confluence moved forward, its form shifting between states of matter in mesmerizing patterns. When it spoke, the sound seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Your ships will not move against our will," it stated simply. "We control hyperspace now. We see all pathways. We can close them or open them as we choose." The chamber fell silent. The implications were clear. Without hyperspace travel, the Council's vast territories would fragment within weeks. Central worlds could not control outer systems without rapid transit and communication. Matriarch Zelna stepped forward, her iridescent scales catching the light. She was tall and elegant, with 4 arms that moved with fluid grace as she spoke. "For centuries, my people were told we were too aggressive for galactic society. In truth, you feared our ability to detect falsehoods. No more lies, Arbiter Delvos. Accept the new reality or face isolation." Elder Elohan's crystalline form resonated with harmonic tones as he added, "The humans did what none of us could have. They united us. Not through force or manipulation, but through truth and shared purpose." The chamber fell silent as Thomas Rivera, who had observed quietly until now, approached Delvos. He walked slowly, deliberately, until he stood face to face with the Cadrax representative. "3 weeks ago, I stood before your council as a supplicant," Thomas said. "Today, I stand before you as an equal. The choice is simple: evolution or extinction. Your council can evolve to become a true partner in this new galaxy, or it can cling to the old ways and fade into irrelevance." Delvos looked around the chamber, seeing the united front of formerly suppressed species, the liberated dimensional beings, and humanity on the catalyst that had changed everything. "And if we refuse?" he asked finally. Eleanor's expression remained calm but resolute. "Then you will be confined to your current territories without access to hyperspace travel, without the resources of the outer systems, without the innovations that will emerge from our cooperation. You won't be destroyed, Arbiter Delvos. You'll simply be left behind. Throughout the chamber, representatives nodded in agreement. The verdict was clear. The age of council dominance was over. Delvos's carapace shifted colors slightly, a sign of intense internal conflict among his species. I must consult with the Primarch and the Inner Council. You have 48 hours, Eleanor stated. After that, the borders will be set and the new alliance will begin formal operations. As Delvos was escorted from the chamber, the real work began. Representatives from hundreds of worlds broke into smaller groups, beginning the process of forming a new galactic governance structure, one built on equal representation and mutual benefit rather than dominance and control. Thomas found Marcus in one such group, where he was showing representatives from a dozen worlds the mysterious cube they had recovered from the archives. Any progress? Thomas asked. Marcus shook his head. Not yet. We can detect data stored inside, but the interface technology is unlike anything we've seen. The Nix believe it predates the Council by thousands of years. Keep working on it, Thomas said. If it contains knowledge from a previous galactic civilization, it could be invaluable to building our new alliance. Across the chamber, Dr. Reeves was deep in conversation with representatives of the Confluence. The dimensional beings had created a more stable physical avatar to interact with the material world arc, a swirling, humanoid form composed of light and energy. They're offering to teach us about hyperspace, Lydia explained when Thomas joined them. Not just how to travel through it, but how to understand it as a living dimension. They say our quantum theories barely scratch the surface of reality. Thomas nodded. And in return? They want to learn from us too, Lydia said, her eyes bright with excitement. They've been watching our dimension for millennia, but were prevented from meaningful contact by the Council's suppression technology. They're fascinated by our art, our music, our emotions. A cultural exchange, Thomas mused, between dimensions. Remarkable. Admiral Walsh called for attention as the preliminary discussions concluded. The chamber quieted as she took the central position again. We have much work ahead of us, she announced. But today we've taken the first steps toward a truly united galaxy. Representatives from all worlds will reconvene tomorrow to begin drafting the Alliance Charter. For now, I suggest we all take time to reflect on what we've achieved and what we hope to build together. As the gathering dispersed, Thomas found himself standing with Eleanor at a viewport, looking out at the stars. Do you think the Council will accept our terms? He asked. Eleanor's expression was thoughtful. Some will. Others won't. The Primarch and the Inner Circle have too much to lose. They'll resist to the end. But the outer worlds of Council space? They'll see the benefits of joining us. And humanity, Thomas asked. Where do we fit in this new galaxy? Eleanor smiled. Right in the middle of it all, I expect. Not as rulers or conquerors, but as connectors. It seems to be what we're good at. Thomas nodded, remembering how quickly Earth had adapted when the truth about galactic society was revealed 3 years ago. The initial panic and confusion had given way to determination, then innovation. Humans had looked at the Council's rules and restrictions and immediately begun finding ways around them. The Council never understood us, Thomas said. They saw our capacity for violence and aggression, but missed everything else our creativity, our adaptability, our willingness to cooperate with those different from ourselves. Their loss, Eleanor replied. Our gain. A message arrived from Eartha. The United Earth government had unanimously approved the preliminary, so fixated on military threats that they never saw this coming. A revolution of information and relationship. Galactic leaders stunned as humanity walks away from peace negotiations. 5 years later, the observation deck of the Earth diplomatic vessel Unity offered a spectacular view of what had become known as the Convergence War. Massive space station at the boundary between Old Council space and Alliance territory, the station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, its spiraling structure incorporating architectural elements from dozens of species. Energy fields of shifting colors surrounded it, both for protection and as a celebration of the diversity it represented. Ambassador Thomas Rivera, now considerably grayer but still sharp-eyed, watched as ships from dozens of species navigated the complex docking procedures. The Unity was positioned at a respectful distance, waiting for its turn to approach the station. Through the viewports, Thomas could see vessels of every imaginable design, from the crystalline ships of the Nyx to the organic-looking craft of the Viridians to the geometric precision of Council engineering. "I never thought I'd see this day," said a familiar voice behind him. Thomas turned to see Admiral Eleanor Walsh, now the Alliance's chief coordinator, approaching with Dr. Lydia Reeves and Marcus Reed. Eleanor's uniform had changed, now bearing the symbol of the new Galactic Alliance, a spiral of stars embraced by stylized hands of different shapes, representing unity and diversity. The first Galactic Exchange Summit, Thomas acknowledged. Even the hardliners from the old council couldn't resist the opportunity forever. Lydia gestured toward a particularly ornate vessel approaching the station. Its hull was polished to mirror brightness, reflecting the stars around it. "That's the Primarch's personal ship. I'm told this is the first time in recorded history that a Primarch has left council space." Marcus chuckled. "Amazing what 5 years of watching your neighbors thrive will do to change stubborn minds." The Alliance had flourished beyond even the most optimistic projections, with the confluence providing unprecedented access to hyperspace travel and communication, and without the artificial suppression of technological development. A renaissance had swept through Alliance space. Worlds once deemed primitive now contributed groundbreaking advances in medicine, energy, and computational sciences. The Viridians had revolutionized agricultural technologies, enabling food production in previously barren environments. The crystalline Nyx had developed new forms of quantum communication that made real-time galactic discourse possible. And humanity, true to form, had excelled at integration, creating systems and frameworks that allowed vastly different species to collaborate effectively. Their arriving, Eleanor noted as a delegation of council representatives entered the observation deck. The Primarch, its form more stable than in years past, approached the Earth delegation with evident caution. Where once its body had shifted constantly between gaseous and solid states, now it maintained a humanoid shape, perhaps as a concession to diplomatic norms. Its voice, when it spoke, no longer relied on translation devices, but emerged directly in comprehensible language. Another sign of adaptation. "Ambassador Rivera," it acknowledged. "Admiral Walsh, Dr. Reeves, Mr. Reed, the architects of change." Thomas inclined his head respectfully. "Primarch, we appreciate your willingness to attend." The Primarch's form rippled slightly, what Thomas had learned to recognize as a sign of discomfort. "I must acknowledge that our predictions regarding humanity were flawed. We expected your species to either submit or attempt direct confrontation. But instead, we chose door number 3. Marcus interjected with a smile. "Indeed," the Primarch continued. "You built alliances where we saw only subjects. You shared knowledge where we hoarded it, and the results?" It gestured toward a data display showing comparative development indices across both regions of space. The Alliance territories glowed with activity and advancement, while Council space showed only modest growth. "We have come to propose a formal treaty," the Primarch stated. "Not a surrender, but an acknowledgement that perhaps after 10,000 years the Council's approach requires reconsideration." Eleanor exchanged glances with her colleagues before responding. "We welcome this dialogue, Primarch. The Alliance has never sought the Council's destruction, only its transformation." As delegates from across the galaxy began to fill the Grand Summit Chamber, Thomas found himself standing beside a representative of the confluence. The dimensional being had taken a form that approximated a tall, slender humanoid, composed of swirling purple light. Its voice resonated with harmonic overtones when it spoke. "Did you know it would unfold this way?" Thomas asked the dimensional being. "When humanity first discovered your existence, did you foresee this outcome?" The luminous entity shifted into a more defined form. "Time moves differently for us. We saw possibilities or branching pathways. In most, the Council continued its dominance for millennia more. In some, galactic war consumed all. But in one of the path you chose, we saw something unprecedented, genuine cooperation across dimensions and species. And now?" Thomas asked, looking out at the gathering of former enemies and unlikely allies. "Now," the being replied, its voice resonating with something like hope. "We write a new history together. The Council feared humanity's potential because they recognized something of themselves in you, the capacity for both creation and destruction." But they fail to see what truly sets humans apart. And what's that? Thomas asked. Your stubborn insistence on finding a third option when presented with only two. Your refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. The being's form brightened. Your willingness to simply walk away from a bad deal and create something better. As the summit officially opened, representatives from hundreds of worlds took their places in a chamber designed not with concentric rings of hierarchy, but a true circle of equals. The mysterious cube recovered from the archives had finally yielded some of its secrets, revealing fragments of a civilization that had existed long before the Council. One that had valued cooperation over competition, sharing over hoarding. Marcus had been right. It was the first archive, a record of a galactic golden age that had been deliberately obscured by the Council founders. Now its recovered wisdom was informing the framework of the new alliance. We gather today, Eleanor began, addressing the assembled delegates, not to erase our differences or forget our past conflicts, but to acknowledge that our diversity is our greatest strength. 5 years ago, humanity walked away from what the Council called peace negotiations. We did so not because we rejected peace, but because we rejected the false peace of submission and control. The Primarch stepped forward to stand beside Eleanor, a powerful symbolic gesture. And we of the Council acknowledge our error. For too long we sought to impose order through uniformity, to prevent conflict by suppressing potential. We feared difference. We feared change. Lydia presented the newly drafted Galactic Accords Award, a document that had been created with input from every member world. These accords recognize the sovereign rights of all sentient species, dimensional or material, to self-determination and development. They establish protocols for sharing knowledge, resolving disputes, and protecting vulnerable worlds without suppressing their growth. The document was displayed holographically for all to see, rotating slowly above the center of the chamber. It represented thousands of hours of negotiation, compromise, and visionary thinking. The first signatures will be symbolic, Thomas explained. Representatives of Earth and the original Council, acknowledging our shared commitment to a new beginning. As Thomas and the Primarch moved to the central platform to sign the accords, a strange energy filled the chamber. The representatives of the confluence began to glow more intensely, and the air seemed to vibrate with an almost musical quality. What's happening? Thomas whispered to Lydia. She smiled. They're celebrating. In their dimension, emotions create energy patterns. They're sharing their joy with us. The feeling spread throughout the chamber, ushered in a sense of profound hope and possibility that transcended species barriers. Even the most skeptical delegates seemed affected, their postures relaxing, their expressions softening. Thomas signed his name to the document, followed by the Primarch. As they completed the symbolic act, the chamber erupted in a sound that, despite coming from hundreds of different species with different modes of expression, could only be described as applause. The signing ceremony continued for hours as representatives from every world added their names or marks to the accords. By the time it was complete, the galaxy had been formally unified for the first time in known history. Not under the control of a single authority, but in a network of mutual respect and cooperation. Later, as the celebrations continued, Thomas found himself alone on an observation platform looking out at the stars. The view was different now. Where once he had seen only pinpoints of light against darkness, he now knew the names of the worlds orbiting many of those stars, had met beings who called those worlds home. Penny for your thoughts, Eleanor said, joining him at the viewport. I was just thinking about how differently this could have gone, Thomas replied, if we had followed the Council's playbook or tried to fight them directly, or build weapons to challenge their dominance. Eleanor nodded. We would have become what we opposed, or been crushed trying.